Okay. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. We're really lucky to have four amazing speakers and fitness enthusiasts, and really grateful to have everybody here today. So we have Chloe Sear and Aiden Nolan. So they're both master's students at Dalhousie in the exercise kinesiology program. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Sorry. I'm like, let me double check. And then we also have Ben Perry and Mark Ayton. They're both pancreatic cancer patients, but they're also major fitness enthusiasts, and do lots of exercise, and that's sort of something that they really enjoy. So we're going to be hearing a little bit more from them. About their stories with pancreatic cancer, how exercise impacts them, and yeah, just a little bit more about their story. So really excited to have everybody here today. And without further ado, I will pass it over.
I guess I'm starting it off here. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks everyone for showing up again. We enjoyed preparing this one. Quite excited. It seems to be to us, for me anyway. It seems like we're ironing out the kinks and we're trying to make each one a little bit better than the last. So we'll start out with my cancer journey very quickly. For many years, I was having stomach issues, not knowing what it was. I had tried many different things, cut this, that out of my diet, didn't seem to help. Always had this aching back problem. And then finally one day I went and see the doctor and they noticed something on my pancreas, and quickly right away they say, yeah, we can, you're definitely eligible for surgery. So I said, great. And then a month after that, November of 21, they said, you're ineligible for surgery, get your affairs together. So drastic change in my diet, really focused on the cleaning up the inflammation of the foods that were bothering me, got rid of that, and worked on that. Seemed to help me right away. Got chemo, 8 rounds of chemo. The lesions disappeared on my liver. The tumor shrank enough that I was eligible for surgery again. And so off we went, had surgery June of 22, followed by a few rounds of Florinox in August to November, and still to this day, NED. You see in the background here, there's a picture of myself. The day that my surgeon said I could lift more than 20 or 10 pounds, I climbed a 60-foot pine tree. Maybe I didn't start off saying that I'm an arborist, and this was my fitness regimen was daily working, climbing as an arborist. So got back to that. We'll send it on over to Mark.
Thanks, thanks, Ben. Yeah, my name's Mark Ayton. I'm located down in Niagara region in Southern Ontario, and I'm married to Joanne. I have 3 grown adult daughters that live from one end of Canada to the other, and I'm a 64-year-old professional engineer, and I'm still working. My cancer journey began just over 19 months ago on the evening of Friday, September 16th, 2022. While I was preparing for a half Ironman distance triathlon later that weekend. During dinner that night, my wife Joanne said that I was turning yellow. And after some persistent convincing and checking with the neighbors, including a vet and a pharmacist, we went off to the local emergency department at 8 o'clock on a beautiful Friday night. Around 10 o'clock, my blood work results confirmed that I was jaundiced. And just before midnight, was told that the results of my CT scan was that I had a mass on the head of my pancreas. I was immediately admitted to hospital, and over the next week underwent many more tests, scans, and insertion of a stent. Although I still felt physically great, and although I still felt physically great, my diagnosis was stage 4 pancreatic cancer, aka pancreas ductal adenocarcinoma, with metastasis to my lymph nodes in my neck and my abdomen. Over the course of the evening, I basically went from peak physical mental condition to palliative, and thus missed the race on Sunday. After getting my bilirubin levels under control, I started biweekly chemotherapy treatments of FOLFIRINOX, and that started on October 20th, 2022. After 13 treatments, we stopped the oxaliplatin due to neuropathy in my feet and fingers, and that was on April 27th, 2023. And then we continued with another 14 treatments of FOLFIRI until December 7th, 2023. The CT scans that I had in the fall of 2023 showed pulmonary nodules in my lungs, so we ended up switching to Abraxane gemcitabine on December 21st. Due to extreme fatigue and progression of the disease in my lungs, we stopped Abraxane gemcitabine after my 6th treatment. That was on March 14th. We started fulfnalire. I'm sorry, I'm having a problem with that one. Fulfalnary on April 4th, 24th, and I've completed 2 treatments over the last 2 weeks. To date, I've gone through 35 chemo treatments, 3 hospital stays of about a week each. I'm not eligible for the Whipple, and here I am today. And we'll talk later about what's been happening with my treatment.
What a warrior.
Trying.
All right, Chloe, you're up, my friend.
Hi, everyone. My name's Chloe. I'm a patient support volunteer with Craig's Cause, so you might recognize me from there. I'm also very passionate about researching and understanding pancreatic cancer, as I've lost some close family members and friends to pancreatic cancer, so it's something I'm passionate about. I'm also a researcher at Dalhousie. I'm doing my master's degree looking at how we can use exercise to better help people manage advanced pancreatic cancer. I'm also a trainee with the Beatrice Hunter Cancer Research Institute, which is kind of a big research institute out in Atlantic Canada. So I'm very happy to be here today and to talk more about something I'm very passionate about.
Great, thank you. And sitting beside her is Aiden.
Hi, I'm Aiden. I'm also a master's student and researcher here at Dalhousie. My research is a little bit different than Chloe's. She's studying pancreatic cancer. I study pediatric cancer. So my study looks to see the obstacles to play opportunities for preschool age children that are living with cancer, and hopes to explore how we can provide more resources in order for them to play and help promote their development. I have lots of experience in exercise, just particularly for participants that are living with cancer or participants that have been recovering from some sort of chronic disease, whether that's stroke or cognitive impairment as well. So I'm super passionate about exercise and the benefits that it can have for your body. And I've also lost several family members and best friends due to different types of cancer. Pancreatic cancer, unfortunately, isn't one of them, but yeah.
You know what I loved about that when you said play, because I feel when we talk about exercise, for me particularly, is my passion of climbing trees. To me, it's play. It's not so much work. Is Melanie here today, Chloe, or someone want to introduce?
Yeah, so our supervisor is Dr. Melanie Keats, who I think is going to be joining the call perhaps a little later on as a surprise appearance. She's a professor at Dalhousie in the Department of Kinesiology. She's also a senior scientist with that Cancer Institute out in Atlantic Canada. And she's the co-director of the Physical Activity and Cancer Lab, which is located at Dalhousie. But there are kind of partnerships across Canada, and similar research is also happening around the world. And we really strived to make exercise a standard of care for people living with and beyond cancer. So that's kind of one of her missions in research.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll move on. So the next topic, Mark and I will be discussing our journey with exercise and cancer. So Aaron, if you want to throw up that second picture of me there, and then we'll just kind of explain somewhat as an arborist. So back when I was first diagnosed, my doctor had told me to get my affairs in order. So I had owned a tree service for 18 years, I believe, at the time. And so I ended up selling my business. And as we all know, down the road turned out that I was eligible for surgery with a lot of different stuff we did. But the whole time that I was ill, and I remember my staff telling another member of the staff, man, if I was sick, I would not be out here working. But for me, the working, it was my Zen place, my place to go to to forget about things. And more than one time, I remember it was in December of 21, I was up in the tree, it was snowing, we were on a lake over a friend's house, and I had finished doing this really difficult tree that was out over a roof. had taken the branches off, and there was just left the block out, the kind of the simplest part. And I took my hard hat off and I looked around, and I kind of had a little bit of a cry on the inside. And I said, you know, if this is the last tree that I ever get to climb, I'm happy, you know. So from there on, every time I climbed a tree, when I was done with the situation or before I came out, I always popped my hard hat off and I just looked around and appreciated where I was and that I was still able to do it. And even to this day, we just went for a walk and I was looking at some trees and I was like, oh, that's a tree I should be climbing. And the people with us just said, you know, it's great that you're still physically able to do this. And I was thinking, yes, you know what, thank you. So moving on forward down the road, this picture here last year, I've been competing for 18 to 20 years, I think, in trees. Every year we have our tree climbing competition. And this year, every year that I go, I'm usually one of the oldest competitors. This year, I was the oldest by 10 years. And I told my wife I was just going to go into it just to compete, just to be there, basically. But I didn't realize that the competitiveness really comes out. And I had been, this is after surgery, by the way. This was May of 23 last year. That I'm competitive, and there I had been working enough and exercising enough to keep somewhat physically fit. And without trying too hard, I ended up finishing fourth out of 15th. I guess just because I really enjoy doing it. So just how the exercise is important to me, it is part of my Zen place. To get to my Zen place is up in the tree. To get there, I need to be physically fit. So yeah, I definitely need that exercise. So I'm going to slide it on over to Mark, and he's going to tell you about his why his exercise is important to him.
Thanks, Ben. As I mentioned earlier, my cancer journey began just over 19 months ago in September 2022. Obviously, exercise and staying in shape was a major part of my life, primarily consisting of long distance cycling, running, swimming, weight training, and yoga. A lot of stretching. I wasn't always athletic. I never played sports in high school, and actually didn't start triathlon and started doing those yearly Santa Claus runs until after I turned 50. And that was in response to a challenge at a Christmas party, and couldn't let a challenge go unchallenged. So I really didn't start getting into fitness until after I turned 50. After my second FOLFIRINOX treatment in October of 22, I asked my oncologist if I could start running again, as I had already resumed cycling indoors. The advice was that mechanically, there was no reason I couldn't resume running and swimming, but I needed to be very cautious and not overdo it, as I was fighting cancer and chemotherapy requires a lot of energy. They kind of knew that I kind of don't do things halfway. So anyways, after my first slow run in November, I signed up for the Craig's Cause Kicking Pancreas 5K run in Burlington. That was scheduled for December 4th, 2022. And crossing that finish line with my older brother on that cold, dark night was certainly triumphant. I mean, 3 months after being diagnosed, 3 months after, and being able to be back running, and even though it was just 5K, that was amazing. In general, while on FOLFIRINOX and FOLFIRINI every 2 weeks, I would go home from treatment on Thursday feeling like I got run over by a truck. I would start to feel better, usually on Saturday afternoon after I had my infusion bottle removed. And then I could sometimes do a light indoor bike ride starting Sunday afternoon. So I was getting these treatments every 2 weeks. So the first weekend was basically a write-off, and then I'd start returning to normal. The following weekend, I would be out running and indoor cycling. And that would continue right up until the Thursday morning. Usually I do a bike ride Thursday morning before going in for chemo on the Thursday. So that was, sort of that repeat cycle. Bad weekend, good weekend, repeat. Again, if it weren't for the nausea immediately following my chemo treatment, I really wouldn't know I had cancer. It was sort of a bizarre situation, and the exercise certainly really helped me out. Now, fast forward to September 17th, 2023. So basically 1 year after diagnosed, I got a chance to do a do-over of that triathlon I missed when I was diagnosed. However, the week before, as part of preparation, I signed up for the 70-kilometer long Big Move Walker Family Cancer Clinic ride. Now, Walker Clinic, that's where I go for chemotherapy here in St. Catharines in Niagara. So that was a 70K ride through Niagara, and I got to try out and nail down my hydration and nutrition plan for the triathlon, which was the following weekend. That primarily consisted of scratch hydration, maple syrup, and bobos and gummies for energy. A lot of calories. So it was basically try things out, make sure my stomach was going to deal with this stuff, because basically you carry all your nutrition with you while you're on the event. So the half Ironman distance triathlon the following weekend, that took me 7 hours and 26 minutes to complete. I nailed the 2-kilometer open water swim and the 90-kilometer bike course, but I certainly struggled during the 21-kilometer half marathon run. There was a lot of walking. I defied expectations by not only surviving year one of my cancer journey, but completing a grueling and demanding endurance race. I placed 469th out of 600, so certainly not where I wanted to be, but it certainly was an achievement nevertheless. And I was definitely the only competitor undergoing chemo treatment, so I'd be the same for the Craig's Cause run as well. Here I thought when I signed up for the first Craig's Cause, I just thought there'd be all sorts of patients running that event, much to my surprise. I thought it was normal to be able to do what I was doing. I guess a bit of an anomaly. This picture here is I'm off on the right. The guy who looks like SpongeBob SquarePants, and that's with my one of my chemo nurses, basically my triathlon team that were supporting me all along on this journey, and they've been with me every step of the way. As I mentioned earlier, the Abraxane gemcitabine treatments over the past several months have caused extreme fatigue, and unfortunately caused me to basically stop my exercise routine, start sort of the end of February into March and into April. I've also, starting in February, I started having a lot of lower back pain, so I've been taking a lot of hydromorphone to deal with that, which has been affecting things as well. So not in a great place right now. However, the other thing too is it's now a huge struggle for me to climb stairs. Unfortunately, well, we live in a 2-story house, so you have to climb stairs. But basically, when I get to the top of the stairs, I have a chair there. I have to sit down and sort of catch my breath, and same thing, walk around the block. So basically, a 2-month deterioration from being able to run a 5K race in December to having a challenge getting up a set of stairs. I'm actually just starting to get my energy back now, and I'm slowly resuming light exercise and stretching again. And one of the warm weather is certainly helping. So my goal today is just to do a half-hour indoor ride, light, and that's my goal for today. So any sort of exercise is better than no exercise, and just do what you can do in baby steps and one foot in front of the other. So that's my goal for today.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mark. I listen every time you tell that story about competing, being with your cancer, and finishing the marathon, or the triathlon, I'm impressed. So as I said to you before, Superman, I'm quite impressed. Yeah, and I wanted to get back to that part too. Like, I remember the time I was taking the Florinox, and I had just had my treatment, and like you say, around the 4th or 5th day is when you slightly, well, usually the 3rd, 4th day is when I start to feel bad, and I got 2 days of it, and then the 6th day I start to come back, and then 7th I'm good. But it was in September of 22 when I was on my chemo treatment, and the storm was coming in, Hurricane Fiona, and a customer had called me and said, can you take this tree off of the building before? And I was like, oh, sure I can, but like hoping that I could. And I woke up that morning and I was not there at all. But it took me an hour at home to mentally convince myself that I could do it. And my wife and the guy who was coming with me to help, he said, you shouldn't go. You don't need to go. You don't need to go. And I said, no, I'm going. I was very determined to go. And then when I got on site and I'm putting on my gear and getting all the gear out, and I'm looking at the tree and planning my route and whatnot, 20 minutes to convince myself to go. But once I started that tree and I got up into it, I did not know I was sick, because I was just focusing on what I was doing. And it was a daily routine to me, because it was just something that I do all the time. And people always said, oh, you're working, you're exercising. And I said, yeah, you're paying me to exercise every day. So I really enjoyed that part of it. When I got out of the tree, I got it down on the ground. The customer said, wow, that was amazing for a guy who was sick with chemo and cancer. You did that so fast. it was like that. I started to feel sick right away, because I completely forgot that I had all these things inside of me. So, and I know last year when I started running again to run for the Craig's Cause run, and I told Mark this, I never in my life have I ever got a high while I was running, but when I was done about 2 hours later, oh, I felt so good. So it's the run I didn't like, but the feeling afterwards was amazing. Anyway, I believe we're moving on now. We got the Marks done, the Chloe, the pancreatic cancer. Okay, we're into Chloe. Chloe, we know exercise is good for us throughout our lives, but it is especially good in cancer. Chloe, you're up.
Yeah, so
I know I'm jumping around, sorry.
oh, it's great. So I think kind of we heard, from Ben and Mark, the exercise kind of was really important to them before cancer, and it's important during cancer and after cancer. And I think we kind of hear growing up, you should exercise, it's good for you. But then just really understanding that when you have cancer, exercise is kind of especially good. It's really therapeutic. Because there's benefits related kind of generally that everybody will get from exercise. But if you have cancer, there are also benefits, such as maintaining your functional capacity. So cancer, it takes a toll. And I think being able to build up strength while you can, so that during the cancer journey, perhaps if there is a dip in your ability to do something, that you still have that kind of strength built up to enable you to be able to do the everyday tasks. And what an everyday task is going to be dependent, what you were doing before. So maybe you're not, looking to get back up a tree or get back to long distance running, but maybe you're looking to get back to be able to walk down the driveway to get your mail, or meet up with friends, and that those goals are also important, and exercise can also help you kind of maintain that ability. Also, one of the really distressing kind of symptoms that I think a lot of people might experience with cancer is fatigue, and kind of maybe some depression, anxiety, that comes along with a cancer diagnosis. And exercise, it's kind of sometimes when you least want to exercise is sometimes when you need it the most, because it really does, it can kind of lift your energy and reduce fatigue, and kind of help you manage that feeling of anxiety and depression. So it's definitely a hard step to take, but it can be helpful.
I know, I
Also,
totally agree with that part, Chloe. That totally, I think from everybody I've talked to, that's one important thing there. Sorry.
no, yeah, it is. And it sounds hard, because if you weren't maybe identifying like, oh, I wasn't an athlete beforehand, why am I going to become an athlete now? That's one reason that, you could give it a shot. Also, if you're, going into the Whipple surgery, or you're going into chemotherapy, I think a lot of people tell those can kick you in the butt a little bit. Like, those are tough. The chemotherapies are tough. The recovery from Whipple is tough. And again, building that strength beforehand can be really important. So kind of no matter where you are, even if you're in a prevention kind of context, exercise can be good. But even after diagnosis, preparing for surgery and treatment, and recovering from surgery and treatment, or even at end of life, to kind of get, those emotional, psychological benefits while also maintaining ability could be really important.
Yeah, Chloe, I totally agree with that. The part about the Whipple surgery, I know the day before Whipple surgery, my two sisters came over from Prince Edward Island. I'm in Nova Scotia in Halifax, and we did tree work together with my two sisters. Like, that was the coolest part, I think, of it. But I still was climbing trees. They had never seen me climb trees. Is one. It wasn't a very big tree, but they worked with me. And I totally believe that when I was in the hospital and I got out really quick afterwards, the surgery went well, but I think it was because I was determined to get out of there, for one. Walking while I was after surgery, walking every day as much as I could. There was 2 to 3 kilometers a day. I was shuffling, not so much walking. And yeah, the doctor said, if we had your paperwork ready today, it's the 5th day, you could be out today. So they let me out the next day. And I think that is definitely prior to the exercise, the shape I was in. And not that I was in great shape, because the chemo took a lot out of me, but I fought. And we know not everybody can fight the whole time and fight, but just that one little baby step today, tomorrow, that they 2 steps further, or, you know, a half a block the next day, 2 blocks the next day, and so on. All right, has Mel arrived yet? Has anyone seen?
Mel is having technical
Okay,
difficulties,
that's all right.
I believe. But yeah, just kind of understanding that exercise can look different no matter where you are. So if you're still feeling very good, you know, there can be exercise to challenge you there. But also if you're feeling the effects of chemo, you're feeling the effects of the cancer, there's also an exercise routine that can help you where you are. That's not gonna, you know, push you past your limits.
Okay, great. Mark, do you have anything to add on this last statement there by Chloe?
Yeah, I mean, just getting out and moving. That's what's been helping me a lot, especially again, the last couple of months to go from like 100 mph to 1 mph, or even months. It's been, but again, I can feel again, spring is sprung now.
Yeah, you
It's
got her.
we're outside and the sun, we had a nice day of sunshine yesterday. So these are all things that are starting to basically try and get my mojo back, I guess you'd call it. But did you, do we want to, yeah, I guess we wanted to talk about what, we were going to talk about what exercise does, the benefits. Is that now or was that later if I missed
Well, I
it?
think if I'm following along correctly, we're looking into getting Aiden involved here by showing some exercises. That's where
Okay,
I'm.
yeah, I had a couple comments before that.
Oh,
So,
no, go ahead. No, that's what I said. The floor is yours.
yeah, sorry, I'm just can't follow a script.
No, it's okay. It's me who's jumping off. It's me who's jumping off.
I mean, like I said, being able to continue with exercise at any level, at any level you're at, and being able to complete various events, like being just again going for a walk to the store, whatever, while undergoing chemo treatments, that's allowed me to have some sense of control over my life and feel somewhat normal. I mean, we have to balance the brutal facts of reality where we have to work everything around, at least in myself, a biweekly chemo treatment and the accompanying side effects, basically like right now, my side effects, they really start on day 4 and day 5 after chemo, whereas before it was I'd come home and feel horrible and basically try and sleep it off. Where now I'm finding I come home feeling actually pretty good right now, but day 4 and 5 are horrible. So I have to readjust and work things around it. As I said, the last several months have been extremely tough for me with the fatigue, lack of exercise, lack of appetite. I've lost a lot of weight. And hopefully hopefully turning that corner by setting small achievable daily goals, reintroducing exercise, stretching in my daily routines. The other thing I found actually just in the last couple of weeks, I've started Reiki treatments at Wellspring here in Niagara, and that's been really good. A little bit of yoga with them as well, and I actually feel more energized when I come out of that, and even I track everything on my Garmin watch, and it's even showing I have a spike in my energy level somewhat. Don't know how, but anyways, it seems to be working for me. And I'm doing physio as well because my legs have been stiffening up. So just trying to get all my joints sorted out again. And yeah, everything is again. I feel that things are starting to go positive again.
Well, that's great, Mark. It's nice to hear that. Yeah, I know as people are sitting down in the crowd here, we could say, and they're like, "Oh, well, you guys exercise a lot before, and maybe I don't do that." And like maybe we are definitely at different positions, points in our cancer journey. But at one point, like Dean, who's on the call today, I remember her. She was talking about when she goes for a walk, she gets so far, and then she has struggles to get back. And then we had told her, well, maybe not walk as far today, and then tomorrow, and then you make it back the next day, just walk 10 steps past that, and then you get back, and then the next day go past that, so you eventually build it up, and then you're feeling good, like you had said about setting yourself a goal, and then you get that goal of like, I'm going to do an extra 25 steps today one way. That's 50 extra steps. It may not seem a lot to Mark and I, but to people who don't do a lot of it, it definitely does seem like a lot.
It is.
Okay,
Ben,
so yeah, so sorry. All right, so now we're gonna call upon Aiden to show us what he does to help us cancer patients when we go in to see him. He has a few exercises. If anyone wants to follow along, I'm going to do my very best to follow along. Aiden, you're on the hook.
I think one thing that I'll add in, that just building off of what we've said so far, and it's just whether you're on treatments or off treatments, just understanding your body and understanding how you're feeling in that moment. And when you're setting some sort of goal in life, and it's not necessarily just an exercise goal, setting a long-term goal is great, but you also want to set those small daily and weekly goals as well. So knowing how you feel in that moment and saying, you know what, I'm very, very low energy today, and just doing what you can is all that anyone can ask, and that's all that you can ask of yourself as well. Versus on the days that you feel really great, then those are the days that you can push yourself. But when it comes to exercise, just making it part of your routine in any way, shape, or form. So like Heather's saying, parking farther away or getting a block off early on the bus, exactly. Or even like if you are at home and say you're not feeling the best and you're watching TV, every commercial break you get up and you go grab a glass of water, or you go to the bathroom or something. Just kind of breaking up that sedentary time is something that's been very proven within cancer research. And yes, there's treatments that people are on that can affect their fitness and their overall health, but trying to incorporate some sort of get up and go and then settle back down when you're not feeling well is the most important part before I show anyone exercise.
You know, it's funny, Aiden, is back in when I was in high school, my brother and I used to wrestle. And during commercials, we would stop and do a push-up challenge for the first commercial, the whole commercial, push-ups, all, and then the next was sit-ups. And that was the first year that I actually did really well in wrestling. And it was because of the push-ups and sit-ups that he challenged me to do. He was 8 years older than me, mind you, but I still tried to kick his butt.
Here, I'll get set up over here.
Okay. Aiden's just gonna get set up. So we're located for those in Halifax at the Dixon building. And this is kind of our exercise space. So we do different exercise programs, and people can come in here and work out under supervision from a clinical exercise physiologist who can be helpful, you know, if you have different concerns about now Aiden has it up on his iPad too. Different concerns and just kind of helping guide you to start slow and progress at your level. So that can be helpful. So I think Aiden is ready and is going to take it away.
I'm going to do my best to follow along, Aiden. I think Aiden,
So
you have to speak. Yeah, you have to speak to take the video.
Okay. So whenever we're doing any sort of exercise and we're starting exercise, so today I'll just treat it whether you're doing it on a consistent basis or whether it's not part of your routine or you don't have experience and you're kind of a beginner. Just there's always ways that we can modify things based on your experience, based on how your body's responding. So if it feels comfy or if your joints are cranky doing those movements. But then there's always ways that we can like make it harder or make it easier. So if your body does feel happy when you're doing something, then we can increase the intensity if your body is responding well to it. Or if it's too hard, we just bring it back down. So some of the things that I'm going to show you is just kind of how you can start from a seated position. And these are things that you could do at the dinner table, or you could do it in the morning, first thing in the morning when you get out of bed, or even if this is something that you're setting that time aside for your day to do some sort of workout. I'm just going to show you like a whole body program here. So just some simple exercises that you'd be able to do, and you do those, you know, a good number would be what feels challenging but also successful. So whether that's you do it 5 times, you do it 10 times, you do it 20 times. Once we start to creep towards I can do this 20 times, then we make it a little bit harder. So first thing that I'm going to show you is the muscles in our legs and the muscle in our bum that are responsible for getting up and down out of a chair, or for getting into that squat that we may or may not do. First thing, if you're sitting in a chair, so you can face me, I'm facing to the side just so that you can see. we always want to stay nice and tall and our back stays straight in all these movements. If we need something to hold on to keep that upright position, then that's also totally okay. But to activate those muscles in our quads sitting down, what we can do is just shift that weight into one leg and we just straighten the other one. When we straighten that leg here, we're using our quad, and you can go up and down, and you can do that, like I said, 5-10 times, or you can hold it, and that might be a little bit more challenging to hold that position. Okay, so that's focusing on just a single leg movement. If we want to get into something that's using both of our legs, then we can use a sit to stand. So like Chloe said, just working on those functional daily living activities is probably the most important thing when it comes to exercise. So for our sit to stand, we want to sit closer to the edge of our chair. Our ankles are below our knees, or you can scooch them back a little bit more. We're leaning forward at our hips first, and then we're pushing our feet into the ground to stand up tall, and we squeeze our bum at the top there. And then we just reverse that movement. So we started with our hips, so now we start again with our hips, and then we bend our knees to get back down to the chair. And
Make
you
sure
can totally,
land on the chair.
yeah, exactly. If you have a chair that's kind of slippery or a floor that's slippery, you would probably put it up against the wall. If you have a nice sturdy chair, or you want to sit further back, it's going to be harder the further back you sit. But again, if we lean forward and stand up tall, you can either come back down and reset, or you can go into your squat and just use that chair to know that you're at the bottom of your squat.
Oh, I like this one. Following along in case you can't tell.
From the next one, then we go into something that you would be doing in a standing position. So whether you're doing this against a wall, so that wall can support you, you can do it against a wall with a stability ball behind your back if doing a squat hurts your knees, or we can just do our normal body weight squat here. So our feet are hip width apart. We start with that hinge at our hips, and then we bend our knees so that we drop our hips towards the floor, our bum towards the floor, while keeping our chest nice and tall. And then we'd stand back up, pushing the ground, and we'd squeeze our bum. So that would be our squat. There's ways to make that harder, but I'm just going to go with those 3 for today. Before we make anything harder, I think one thing that's important is the pace that you do it at. So we're always starting slow and in control. And once it gets easier, then you can go down really, really slow, hold it, and then stand up. Just kind of accentuate that movement.
I'm gonna
So
be
those are the
still.
muscles. Those are the muscles that are responsible for our squat. Now, whenever we do exercise, like Ben's saying, we do want to have some sort of warm up before we start, just so that we don't hop right into something super intense. So normally you want to do something light that gets your heart rate up, or something that can help mobilize our joints. But I can show those things at the end there. The next would be muscles that are going to be responsible for some sort of hinge movement. So if we're bending over to pick something up off the floor, or we're bending over to tie our shoes, or we're picking up groceries, these are things that we want to prevent rounding through our spine, and we want to actually push our hips back to allow us to get closer to the floor to do that. It's much safer, especially if we have bone metastases in our spine. We want to focus on, can we hinge at our hips so that we're in a safe lifting position? So to do that, I know, Ben, I told you about potentially having a towel if you do have one.
I have my towel. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we're back in our chair here, we're going to start from the bottom, work our way up. So we're going to do that single leg activity again. Can you see me all right on the screen, Chloe? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to have that towel. I have a slider here, but a towel works fine as well. You're going to have your heel on that towel with a slight bend in your knee. All you're going to do, staying tall, is push your heel down into that towel, and you're going to try and bring your heel towards your bum, or you're going to bend the knee, and then you're going to straighten your leg back out. It works better with a towel than it does with the slider. I have socks that are kind of slipping on it, but if the whole point is you're driving your heel down, and we're going to use that muscle in the back of our leg to bring that heel closer to our chair.
Are we wanting to straighten that leg out all the way, or stop just before straight? Like, we don't want to hyperextend it, right?
Yeah, so you can stop with a slight bend. If you do go out all the way, you're going to prevent locking that knee. So my
Okay.
leg being fully extended versus locked is slightly different, but absolutely right. You always want to have that slight bend so that you're able to activate that movement
So I can tell you
from
one thing
start to
here
finish.
that people might have the difficulty with is when you have chemo fog, you're focusing on pushing down and pulling in. I
Yep,
remember when I was doing some of these exercises, it took me a while to learn it with the chemo fog, that you had to do two things at the same time: push down and pull in and out. I know it
yep,
seems like something simple, but it is,
totally.
yeah.
Even just if you start it and break it up and you just tell yourself, oh, all I have to do is push down, you can totally just push your heel down into the floor as hard as you can. And you're still using those muscles, and then you can relax the leg. And that's your repetition. So instead of bending, you can push the heel down, or instead of pushing the heel down, you can just work on that bending. And then once 2 and 2 come together, it might get a little bit easier.
No, so it's
Um,
great that you can break these down to make them more simple. And then, like you say, when we need to advance them, we can advance them. It's great.
yes.
I
Remaining
like.
seated here, if we have our feet a little bit wider than our hips, so if I face you, just so you see, my feet are nice and wide to give me space here to lean forwards. All we're going to do nice and tall is we're just leaning forward at our hips, and we can keep leaning forwards. And when we do that, we're trying to either feel a lengthening in through the back of your leg, or we're just going until the front of our hips tell us to stop there. And then we're getting back up into that upright position. If we creep our legs a little bit farther forwards, then that movement's going to get a little bit harder. We're going to start to feel that in the back of our legs a bit more. And then again, we're hinging at our hips to get up. We're not rounding forwards and extending backwards. So those are working on the muscles in our
Keeping that back nice and straight, right?
back nice and straight. You can cross your arms across your chest to give you that reminder. Shoulders are back. Maybe even thinking of bringing your shoulders back or squeezing your shoulder blades together as we go down.
I
And
hope
back up.
everyone's following at home, like the 20-minute aerobics back in the 80s.
From there, then we can go up into a standing hip hinge. So whether that is my bum is close to the wall. So if I used this chair as an example of the wall, then I would just maybe take 1 or 2 steps away from the wall. I'm standing up tall, and I'm putting a slight bend in my knees. I'm pushing my hips back, and then that wall tells you when to stop. As soon as you feel that contact, you stand back up and squeeze your bum. If you don't feel anything in the back of your legs doing that, then you walk further and further away from the wall until those backs of your legs start telling you, oh, maybe I've gone too far. If you take the wall away, now we don't have that feedback anymore. So like Ben said, making sure our back is nice and straight then becomes a little bit harder. So we cross our arms across our chest, and we push our hips back. And we always want to start with our hips. We're not bending our knees and going into that squat. So just trying to keep that same bend in our knees and pushing our hips back the whole time is going to use those muscles in the back of our legs. But sometimes it might challenge our balance as well. So if we have neuropathy in our feet, that one might be a little bit more challenging. So then you can do that hip hinge, with something in front of you, just as that reminder. Or we can always put that towel underneath our toes, and that gives us a reminder to keep our feet pressing down into the floor as we do that movement, instead of rocking back on our heels and falling backwards. Am I going too fast, or we're doing okay?
No, we're doing okay.
Okay. So then that's our hinge movement. So far we've kind of gone over muscles that are going to be important for squatting down, getting up out of our seat, getting in and out of a car, picking up groceries, tying our shoes. Those are all things that are going to be important with those movements. Okay. Next, we go into the muscles that would be responsible for some sort of push exercise, right? So whether that's closing a door, whether that's getting ourselves up out of a chair, pushing armrests, or even if it's going to be something a little bit more demanding in our everyday life, or a little bit heavier. We're going to focus on muscles in our chest and in our shoulders that are going to be responsible for pushing or raising our arms over our head. So for that one, let's see if I don't think I need any. Yeah, totally. So for that one, we can either be up against the wall, hands against the wall, or we can have hands on a chair here. So I'll go a little bit quicker and show on a chair. But if your hands are against the wall, it's just starting with a body weight push up. So if you're against the wall, it's going to be much easier than if we are on an incline here on our chair. So Ben, if you want to make it a little bit harder, then I would flip the chair and start on where your bum's going to go, just so it's a little bit sturdier. But if we're dropping our hips and bringing those shoulder blades together and pressing up, that's going to be one that will probably be very challenging, but also we'll start to notice a lot of difference in our daily activities that we're doing with that one.
I'm not as strong as I thought I was, Aiden.
You want your hands to be underneath your shoulders. And then if we're against the wall, same thing. We'd start with that bum squeeze and just bend our elbows to bring our shoulder blades together. And then we would push ourselves away. After that, if you have a resistance band, that's awesome. Then we can go into a chest press with a resistance band. If you don't, then you can start to throw in other daily things that are going to be lying around your house that have some sort of weight to them, right? So whether that's having a can of soup in your hand, or you're holding a milk jug, or we're picking up something that's laying in and around the garage, or we're even, if it's something that's 1 or 2 pounds and we're grabbing a bag of rice, what we can do is either in a standing position, we can focus on pushing that weight over our head, or we can also look to push and hold that straight out in front of us. So if this was something light laying around my house and I just held it straight out in front of me, I'm going to use those muscles in my shoulder and in my chest just to keep that straight out in front of me. There's other things that we can do, but I feel like I'm taking a long time, so speed it up. Then we get into the muscles that are going to be responsible for pulling. Whenever we do some sort of pull activity, then we're going to be using those muscles between our shoulder blades or behind our shoulders. So for that one, we can have just our elbows aligned with our body at the side, and we can squeeze our shoulder blades together. We want our shoulders to drop away from our ears as we squeeze. And as we pull back, we don't want to round and extend through our back. So we're trying to pick a point right in front of us so that we're staring at it the whole time and just squeezing those shoulder blades together.
Oh, I really like this one, Aiden. You can really feel it on the front of the shoulder. I like it. Yes.
From there, if we go palms out in front of us and we just make a T with our arms and think of squeezing our shoulder blades together, that's another one that we can do. So we're using those muscles in our back to squeeze our shoulders. And you don't have to do that in a T. We can do that in a Y as well. So thinking about, your YMCA, but you just maybe hold those letters for a little bit. That one can also be done standing, and it'll be a little bit more challenging in our core if we're doing that standing. So your Ys, your Ts. Or if you want to mix it up, then you do your hip hinge as well, and we get closer to the ground to do those Ts. The closer we are to parallel with the ground, the harder that one's going to be.
I remember doing those in the shop and how difficult it initially was because you were using your core a lot more. But then as you progressed, you realized that it was a full body benefit. So yes.
Yes. Last one, and most importantly, is we always want to be using our core and knowing how to engage our core when we're doing any sort of lifting or doing any sort of exercise in general, so that we avoid that low back pain. And like Chloe was talking about earlier, when it comes to, say, the Whipple surgery or any sort of operation that we're going to get done, then we always want to focus on that core stability and that core strength. Those are going to be things that are really important to getting back to our normal daily activities that we were doing prior to surgery. When we're sedentary for long periods of time, so like you said, you don't have a choice sometimes if you're in a hospital bed recovering. So we can lose muscle fairly quickly, and we can lose control of that core very quickly as well. So just starting with something very simple on how to get your core involved. So this can be done seated. It can also be done standing. But the easiest way to think about activating those pelvic floor muscles or the muscles that are going to be running from our hips up towards our ribs would be your hands are on your hips or your hands are across your chest, and you're thinking of just arching your back slightly. So you round through your back just slightly. And to reverse that movement, you're actually bringing your ribs down towards your hip bones here. Or if we've ever done a cat-cow, if you've ever gone to physiotherapy where they get you to accentuate that and curl all the way in. So what we're doing is we're finding that happy ground where we arch your back slightly so that you feel that you're lengthening away from your hips here, and then we're tucking our hips up underneath us and bringing those hips closer to our ribs. If that one's not working for you, you don't feel that working, another thing that you can do is we breathe in and let our ribs expand through our belly. And when you breathe out, you're thinking of bringing those ribs together or bringing those ribs down. So you're breathing out through your mouth like you're blowing out a birthday cake, or like you have those pursed lips or puckered lips. So nice breath in through your nose and exaggerated breath out through your mouth. Blow out those birthday candles. So whether you're 25 or 85, that breath might be a little bit longer if you're blowing out more candles. So that's one to think about. Whenever we're doing some sort of exerting exercise, then we start to think about that breath. So breathing out through our mouth during the exerting part and during the part where we might be a little bit more vulnerable. So if you're picking up groceries off the ground, you're breathing out as you lift and stand up. Or as we squat, we're breathing out as we stand up. Those are going to be the hardest movements.
Has Chloe left us there, Eden?
I believe
really
she went into
to
the office.
Oh, she's into the office.
just so I
All
can.
right.
But I think that these are good, and it kind of shows. I mean, Aiden's a real, person you could run into to teach these exercises, and I think a lot of times, especially for me, I'm worried like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna look silly. They're gonna be judgmental, but really, like, these aren't kind of your like gym bros all the time. Like they're here to help, and they're knowledgeable, and they know how to keep you safe while you're exercising. And I mean, Aiden's not scary. Aiden's quite nice. So if you are able to reach out to people in your community who have this expertise, it could be helpful.
I also have videos recorded that Melanie has access to. She just launched a YouTube page for our lab, so we'll be posting those videos and short kind of demonstrations on how we can progress exercises and regress them, so make them harder or easier. Because I know I'm spitballing information at people, and We're going a little bit quicker than I would if I was explaining it to people. So absolutely, we'll provide some videos on how we can do those things at home. And yeah, whether you have a lot of equipment or a little equipment, it's from the bottom all the way up.
I think, Aiden, that people will take certain pieces out of this for themselves. They may not take everything, but they may have been 2 or 3 things there that they really, oh, I can do that. Oh, look, I'm doing it now. So that's great. So thank you. We're going to keep flowing on because I know we're starting to get not so much pressed for time, but kind of slightly pressed for time. Chloe, did you want to talk about the difference? Like, and you can elaborate. I'll start it off. When I was in the lab there and I was doing, and yes, where I was before cancer and where I was during cancer and after and all of that, my physical and as well as Mark, we were at different levels than maybe some people who are maybe in the crowd here. So when they come in, if they see me doing something, oh my God, look at him doing this, or look at Mark doing that. I can't do that. I'm not going to go to this program. But it's not about that. It's that they will tailor your exercise program for you, not for Ben. Because Tom had me crawling around on the floor doing crab spider walks, like crazy stuff, because that's what like I needed to get back to climbing trees. Obviously, if you weren't climbing trees prior to this, you don't need to get that far. You just need to get up and motivated and moving to feel better about yourself. So Chloe, you want to touch a bit more base on that?
Yeah, I think it really depends what your goals are. So if your goal is to get, back up a tree, the people who are trained can help you get there. But also if your goals are to, spend more time out of bed, to spend more time being able to do kind of everyday tasks, be able to go get the mail from the mailbox, we're also trained to help you with that. And I think there are different people in kind of the exercise team and setting, and just understanding like if you need kind of help from more of a physiotherapist level, and Aiden might be able to comment on that, versus like planning and tailoring an exercise program, like who do you go to and how do you be with the right person? Because maybe you're very independent and you just want to look up YouTube videos, and that's totally okay too. It just kind of depends on your needs and your goals.
All right. Sorry, I was starting to read some of the comments there. Okay, as we're scrolling along, if we're staying on track, I know Aiden, it was up to you where you were saying that you're going to start slow and progressively work up to, but I think we kind of somewhat covered that. And we got stale air. Anybody want to chime in while I'm trying to find out where we should be here? Chloe, are you following along?
I can chime in. So like Chloe mentioned there at the end, it's really on what are you currently doing? What are some goals that you have in mind, and what type of resource is going to be best to you? So if you don't know resources that are available to you within your community, those are things that you can reach out to community outreach specialists, like with your local hospital that you're affiliated with, or you can talk to your healthcare team about a potential referral to a physiotherapist if you're having some abdominal discomfort, or you're having shoulder pain, or you're having low back pain. If it's to exercise, you can get referred to a physiotherapist, but you can also go to a clinical exercise physiologist who is going to be much more qualified when it comes to writing you a prescribed exercise program. And that can be on the cardio side of things, or that can be on the resistance training, so the muscular side of things. So those are things that you want to take into account. Sometimes there's a confusion when it comes to an exercise professional and a physiotherapist. They'll give you rehab exercises for injuries, and yes, they can make you a program with some exercises, but there's also fitness professionals out there in cancer care who work with cancer patients, who will be able to be there for you, listen to you, connect with you, and make sure that you're doing things safely. And like Chloe said, if you're following videos on the internet, that's absolutely fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but we always want to make sure that we're doing things safely. So just having that initial consultation with someone to make sure that you're doing those things safely is really important, because sometimes we don't know how it looks or what professionals might see versus what you see happening with your body, just because you're so used to how you look moving.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I found when I was in your shop was the starting position of the exercise. If I was doing a shoulder exercise and I start with my shoulders forward and I start to engage, well, I'm not doing it properly. Got to get them back in place before I engage. So, and I translate back to my work, where I don't want to be reaching out for something as much as I want to keep everything tucked in here so I have more power and close. Okay, so as we're following along here, there's a spot where Mel could be giving some suggestions, and I still don't know if she has joined in here or not. Chloe?
He is not, but
Okay.
is as well. If anybody does have questions, again, because so Melanie Keats, my supervisor, she's very well connected with the kind of the other exercise professionals.
Across the
So
country as well, right? Not just here in Nova Scotia.
yeah,
Yeah.
across the country. And I also believe in the US, I mean, we know kind of which groups are doing similar work. So if you're wondering like, oh, do you think this is like who should I contact? I'm sure if you email either Craig's Cause or us at the Physical Activity and Cancer Lab, we can point you in a direction just to make sure you're working with someone who knows a little bit about the oncology setting. Just because, you know, let's say you just did your Whipple, like how soon is too soon to go back to what kind of exercise, and if you have, you know, a drain, or we need to adapt the program around your chemotherapy schedule. Just having a professional who knows those specific things can be helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chloe. Okay, we're getting near the bottom of our list here. So this is a question for you, Mark. As someone with pancreatic cancer, what is your takeaway from our presentation today?
Regardless,
Sorry, Mark. No, you're off mute. My bad.
I mean, regardless of your level of fitness, just get out and do something. What's the old story? Nike, just do it.
Just do it.
Yep. If it's just a walk to the corner to get the mail, or you want to do a 1 kilometer walk around the block, or run a kilometer around the block, whatever is doable for you and achievable, and just get out and do something.
I know I don't want to be throwing someone under the bus again, but Dean, I remember Dean saying in the spring as the weather was getting nicer and how much she was enjoying getting outside and how much her walks meant the world to her. I remember someone coming in at one point and they were talking about something, I forget how it went, and Dean said one of her best things in her day is her walks. You know, so that's you know, that's a great thing to hear, that like knowing that exercise is important to us. Okay, so as we're moving along, and I'm hoping everyone on the panel is following along with me. We're down to the very bottom of our list. Is that right, everyone there? Aaron, Mark, Chloe, Aiden? Yeah. Are we right? We're ending up. Mr. Aiden, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can chime in on that. So in terms of balance activities, that can be something as simple as standing beside a chair, whether it's on your right side or your left side, whatever foot you feel more comfortable is your dominant foot. And you can just have a slight bend in your knee, hands across your chest, and you can lift your one foot off the ground just slightly. You don't have to bring it up into this crazy yoga stance here. You don't have to kick it back. Just lifting that foot up off the floor. Or if we're standing on the ground, if you treat your feet like duck webs, and we're kind of just spreading your toes and pushing your toes down into the floor, and then lifting your toes and pushing those toes back down into the floor. That one can help with that mind-body connection, especially with neuropathy. Something a little bit harder than that single leg balance, what you could go into is single leg balance looking left and right. So instead of staring right in front of you, you're turning your head to the left, turning your head to the right. You might notice that might challenge your feet a little bit more. We can go heel to toe. So if you're standing heel to toe, facing forwards, or you're walking heel to toe, kind of like you're on that tightrope with your hands across your chest. Those would be some intro ones. Of course, there's ones that might be a little bit more challenging that I could show you. But what are your thoughts on some of those so far?
That exercise he just showed us with the foot in front of the other, that's one of the ones that we do in the clinic. If you want to try walk with your eyes closed to keep your balance, is really difficult when we close our eyes for balance.
Talk about the stairs, that's when I start to bring balance and kind of neuropathy into play. Just staring forwards, even if your hands are, if you're at the bottom of the stairs, right?
Yeah.
You have your hands there at the railings just in case you need it, but staring forwards and not looking down and just stepping your foot up and then placing it down on that stair and then lifting it and putting it back down, just challenging your brain on body awareness is one, or having one foot up on the step and just leaning forward at your hips and pushing yourself up, and you're just going up and down on that bottom step. So you have those railings to help you. Even that one is an exercise that, number one, is going to challenge your balance, but number two, it's going to use a lot of our quads, so the muscles in the front of our legs here, and our glute to help us stand up tall. And we've had a lot of people that talk about just doing something as simple as that has really helped with like making something like going up and down the stairs a little less daunting, or finding that you have that strength to go up and down the stairs, or you have more awareness when you're stepping, because sometimes we might unconsciously just step up, right? But now you have to start to think about it a little bit more. So just practicing those things will help a lot.
Aaron, sorry about that, but do we have time for more questions, or are we getting ready to do that final wrap up point?
No, we have time for more questions as long as all of our presenters are okay with staying.
We could also maybe do the final wrap up point, and then anybody could stay for questions if they wanted, but also just to do that wrap up, do you think, just before we kind of go into the...
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that too. Yeah. Okay. So, well, as those of you who've been around with us for a while, or maybe your first time visitors in this Craig's Cause Monday nights meeting, we've all talked about how important it is on our meetings, how important just to be there it is for us and with other people. And we don't realize, I guess, how much other people in this group mean to us until we lose someone. So, as if you didn't know, I'm about to speak about John, who, after our last interview here, I'm getting chills here. After our last interview, John passed away 5 days later. So we're going to take a moment of pause. And I just wanted to mention his quote in the last interview: "Be your biggest advocate when it comes to your own health, or to your health," by John. So we'll just take a moment of silence here.
That's great. Whenever everyone is ready to come back, please feel free to.
Yeah, I know. It is amazing. I remember like when I said to John I wanted to interview him, and he said he'd be honored and whatnot. And even going back further, when I called him a friend, he was like, "You consider me a friend?" And I truly do. On Monday nights, and as Angela said many times, and I've said it many times, that I love you all. And it's such we do have this connection because we're all in the same battle, but we're all helping each other, which is the greatest thing about this. So as someone said to me yesterday when I told them the story, they said, "Don't worry, John will be there with you tomorrow, helping you through this meeting." So, or this presentation. So, okay, on that, shall we leave the floor open for any questions? Thank you, John. Maybe it's hard to follow up with a question.
Yeah, and I think I'll just jump in here, and then maybe people can think of questions. Just I remember John was always doing kind of like research into like what you can do, and I think having that sense of being able to do something, because sometimes, you know, the doctor is saying like this treatment didn't work, and maybe a feeling of a little like, you know, loss of control there. I know my family experienced that. So I think exercise, I mean, even if it's something small, it's something that you can do. Even at end of life, you can still be doing some exercise to maintain that function that you have.